Baal Shem Tov and the Book of Secrets. When Baal was 5 years old, his father was dying. On the day of his death, he called his son and said, "My son, I am now old. The wandering that I have done over the earth has burdened my body with pain. Now my eyes are weary, for they have stared many days upon thick clouds to see one instant of heaven. Now I'm glad that my death has come. My child, know that the dark shadow of Satan will always be with you. He will be in your dreams, for he is a dark side of yourself. There will be times when, like a lightning stroke, you will pierce into his darkest hiding place, and he will fade before you like a fleeing cloud. And there will be times when he will surround you with walls of darkness, and you will stand alone, as upon a raft in the midst of a sea of night. But remember always that in your inner core you can be secure, for he cannot come into it. Go fearless through your life on earth. Do not be afraid of anything, for the highest power is in you. After the death of the father, the people of the village cared for his child. Baal was sent to school, but soon he found, I cannot remain in the small schoolroom. Nature is much bigger. And he would glide through the door and go into the woods. There he would remain all day long, walking under the trees, sitting among the flowers, or by the running river, absorbed with joy. The schoolmaster found him and said, "Come back to the school. You have to learn to become wise." For a few days Baal would stay in the small schoolroom and try to learn. But then again he thought, I have to leave. I feel an urge to leave. And he ran to the woods. At last the schoolmaster lost patience with the boy and said, "Do what you want. Stay in the school or go to the woods. I don't care." So the boy went to the woods, and there he lived joyously. In a cave he made himself a mossy place, and there he slept. He lived on berries and fruits and talked with the birds. Sometimes he stood very still and listened to the sounds of nature. So Baal grew. When he was 12 years old, the desire for more knowledge came into him. He thought, the joy that the flowers and beasts in the forest have given me is no longer enough. I want more knowledge that goes beyond that. So he came out of the woods to the village and became the watcher of the synagogue. He said to himself, "My mind is afire and thirsty, but his thirst can be quenched only by those waters that has cooled for ages, deep in the deepest wells of mystery. And the fire within me burns forever and does not consume. I want to know the innermost secrets. They are like stars in the dark night. I want the secret of secrets revealed to me." The boy lived in the synagogue, but he did not show his passion for learning to the man of the synagogue. But they slept on the benches, pretending to be a cloth. But as soon as the last of the scholars blew out his candle and went home, Baal rose. They took the candle into a corner and lighted it, and all night long he stood and read the holy scriptures. When the boy had learned all the holy books, he said to himself, "I have now searched so many nights for the innermost secret, but I am not content. I have learned all the knowledge that the wise man pretended to know, but I see man does not know, but I ask for more." In another city, the Chassidic Rabbi Adam, master of all mysteries, waited the coming of his last day. In the depths of the night, he thought, in each generation one is chosen to carry throughout his lifetime the candle of wisdom. But the candle may never be set down, and I cannot return to eternal peace until another man illuminates the earth. There shall I find the soul that is a steady burning light, that I may set it to consume the darkness. Here in this book that contains a secret of secrets, this book had been given to my hands. Before me only 6 human beings had possessed the knowledge that is in this book of secrets. He remembered how he had received the book. One night he arose from the sleep, and like a sleepwalker he walked into the wilderness until he came to the foot of a golden mountain. There was a cave. Rabbi Adam went deep into the cave. It was dark and silent. He stood still and listened into the silence. Then a blue glimmer appeared in front of him. It came from a big stone. Suddenly the stone split open, and inside there was an old book bound in leather. On it was written in silvery letters, "The Book of Secrets." Rabbi Adam lifted the book out of the rock and took it with him. Now, at the end of this life, he said to himself, All of my life I have guarded the secret of secrets. Gazing into it I have grown old, and with my eyes I have seen the end of all things. Now I ask, what will become of my wisdom? To whom shall I give the book of secrets? I need a young man whom I can teach and get relieved of the burden of my knowledge. One night he heard a voice saying, give the book into the hands of Baal, who lives in Okup. Rabbi Adam was thankful. Now I can give over my burden and die. So he went to Okup and found the boy in the synagogue. The master watched the boy and thought, I see the eyes of the boy are bright with inner knowledge. This is the right man to receive the book. At night he lay down on a bench and pretended to be asleep. He opened his eyes a little, and he saw how the boy arose and took a candle and lighted it. For many hours the boy remained sitting motionless on a bench in an intensity of inner absorption. The rabbi came near and touched gently his shoulder. The boy opened his eyes and looked at him astonished. The rabbi asked, are you eager to learn? The boy murmured, I have read so many books. What I have learned so far is that man does not know. The rabbi said, here is a book which you have not read. What is the name of the book? The Book of Secrets. Why did I not know about it? Because it is in my hands. Show it to me. The rabbi showed him the book. The boy stared at it. Then he asked, why did you come to me? Because you are predestined to receive this book, said Rabbi Adam. Then the rabbi pretended again to sleep on the bench. When he saw that the boy went also to sleep, he arose and took a leaf from the holy book and placed the leaf on the chest of Baal. Soon the sleeping boy reached his hand toward the leaf. He held the page before his closed eyes and seemed to read the pages of mysteries with closed eyes. And his whole face was aflame. When full day came, the boy fell powerless upon the bench and slept. The rabbi sat by him and watched over him. He placed his hand upon the boy's hand that held the leaf out of the book and took it away. Then he placed the whole book in his hands, saying, know that I place in your hands the infinite wisdom. The words that are in this book have been entrusted only in the hearts of the chosen. When no soul on earth was worthy to contain its wisdom, this book lay hidden from man. For centuries it was buried in unreachable depth. But always there came the time for the uncovering. Again it was brought into light, again lost. I am the last to whom it was entrusted. Rabbi Adam went with Baal to live in a house that stood outside of the town. There, day and night, they were absorbed in the study of the pages that contained the words of all mysteries. Baal was filled with a peace of understanding. Often he went with the leaves of the book into the forest, and there the words of the book were as the words spoken to him by the flowers. But one day Baal said to Rabbi Adam, I am eaten by that upon which I feed, and yet my hunger grows ever more insatiable. The greater the vision opens before me, the greater is the anguish within myself. I am afraid, as one who stands on the great heights and looks down into an abyss. Rabbi Adam, seeing the illness that was come into his companion, said to him, what is it that consumes you? What is it that you desire? Then Baal said to Rabbi Adam, only one thing can give me rest. All that has been revealed to me has set me flaming with a single curiosity. And each new mystery that is solved before me only causes a greater chaos in my mind and a greater hunger in my heart. The Rebbe said, what is the one thing that you desire? Reveal the last word to me. Rebbe cried, the last word cannot be said. Why not? It is silent. But Baal fell on his knees and cried, until I see the end of all wisdom, I cannot come to rest. Rabbi Adam said to Baal, all of the knowledge I ever possessed is contained in the secret book. I found it in the cave, and you have received it from me. Baal asked, what shall I study now? Rabbi Adam held his hand in front of his eyes and said, study your own hand. Baal asked, what wisdom does it contain? The Rabbi said, the wisdom that is within your own heart. Baal was sitting motionless under a tree, looking within. Then Baal said, I have no more need of this book. All the book could teach me is in my heart. Who shall have the book after me? Rabbi Adam said, nobody. Come with me up into the golden mountain. They went up into the mountains. They came to the mouth of the dark cave. They entered and found the blue shining stone. Rabbi Adam touched the stone, and the stone split open. Within the stone he placed the book of secrets. Then he touched the stone, and the stone closed. When they came back to the little house where they had studied, the aged rabbi spoke. Now I am prepared for my journey to eternity. Now I can lay down and die. And he covered his face and closed his eyes and prepared himself for death. And the stillness spread over the land. And in the stillness was hopelessness, and in the hopelessness was death. But over the stillness a living voice came and spoke. You shall not die, my friend. You shall live again. As a grown man, Baal knew all the secrets, but he said, I shall not lead the stifled life of the synagogue scholars with all the rabbinical bickering and with pinpointing disputes over minute of the law. I'd better withdraw to the mountains, where I can wander alone, absorbed in meditation. When Baal came down from the mountains, he said, I want to teach men to live with joy, for joy is the highest form of worship. The woods are holy, and the fields are holy. Every stone and blade of grass contains a spark of the living soul. Every act of living, breathing, eating, walking should be done with joy and ecstasy. To the scholars he said, come out of the dark synagogues into the open air. Long enough have you passed your pale youth, huddled over tomes of law. Lift your heads, and for the first time see the sky. Come with me to the fields. There too God will hear you. But the scholars criticized him. He is violating the tradition. But Baal said, I am not violating the tradition, but the simple truth has become lost in the ritual. Joy is more important than the form or the place of worship. Disciples gathered about him. Soon legions began to grow of the wondrous deeds and teachings of Baal. And then he was called Baal Shem Tov, which means the master of the wondrous name, because he had the power to do miracles. He stood in the marketplace telling his fables to the people who gathered about him, while the rabbi of the town preached to an empty synagogue. Soon his followers numbered in the hundreds, and they became known as the Chassidim. The word Chassid implies intense piety. liberty, the favored ecstasy. Many noted rabbis accused him of ignorance, but the number of Baal's followers grew, for his teaching had the simplicity that goes directly to the heart of the common folk. The secrets and delights of heaven were no longer reserved for the scholars, who could pass all their days and nights in the house of study. The water carrier and the mule driver could gather around the long table in the hut of the master and take part in the discussion. When Satan heard about the success of Rabbi Baal, he laughed and said, "I will destroy him. Light has one great eye, but darkness has 1,000 arms." Then Satan went up and down the lanes, and wherever he passed, he left behind him the chaos of the end of the world. Baal Shem Tov saw the chaos, and he knew that it was his task to struggle against Satan. He sought for his strength, but felt, I am like a house that had been filled with the movement of living people, but now it is empty and still. I feel no power within myself. I shall send forth a call to each spark of my will that I had given out of myself during my lifetime. And he called, "Return to me now, for I have need of all my strength for this struggle." His call streamed over the earth, into the forests, and into poor huts, and into the very grave. For the rays of his powers had gone into distant corners. From the souls of aged men, and from the souls of children, from the souls of scholars, and from the souls of simpletons, the sparks of Baal Shem's inward flame arose, and they returned to him until all of his power were before him. Then one small, steadily burning flame spoke to him. "Master, I have come from the soul of a young scholar. Until you sent me to him, his life was miserable. And he looked and saw only the grey, unending sky upon him. But now he sees the mountain of gold and the blue of brightest heaven, and his eyes are filled with joy. If you take me from him, misery will come over him once more. So let me return and remain with him. I am so small a power, Master." Baal remembered the boy who had come to him and listened, but never spoke. He remembered how he had sent his very spark of his soul to the boy. Then he said to the spark, "Return and remained with him. Then another spark came from the soul of a dying woman and said, I beg you, allow me to go with her into her death. And Baal said, go. And from every side there arose voices, tiny like the crackling of forest leaves, first few, then many, until there was a rush of bleeding and crying for the sake of a woman in childbirth, for the sake of the joyfully wedded, for the sake of blind and poor, for the sake of the simple-headed. Each spark of his power begged to return to the soul to which it had been given. At last, Baal raised his arms and said, my children, go home, each to the heart you have come from. Go. And then the flames of his power left him again, and twilight came. And he stood watching the sparks of his soul fading away like the dawn that rises of the earth. He cast one long look after them. Then the master was alone with what remained of himself. And he knew that what remained was little, for he was weak. He said to himself, once I was a blaze, but now I am only the shadow of a flame. Where shall I find the power to fight against darkness? Satan raised his shoulders. He shook his giant form. He lifted up his arms and reached his fist among the clouds. A storm broke over the earth. Black clouds split upon the tops of the mountains. Thunders broke from peak to peak, and lightnings ran among the trees. Then Baal Shem Tov knew that he has lost his needed help against the enemy. Baal hung his head, for he felt very old. In the midst of the night, Baal Shem dreamed. He was adrift upon the high sea, and his own cloak was the vessel. The vessel was thrown to and fro by a storm, and neither sky nor land was to be seen, only water and water everywhere. Baal said, now I see that everything is gone from me. I feel a weariness that is deeper than the depths of the sea. And in all my depths there is emptiness. I see my soul, and it is like the cast-off skin of a fruit. There is no juice in it, no sweetness. A great cry came over him, and his groaning was louder than the roaring of the storm. Then he threw himself down and waited for the end. night Baal Shem felt the loneliness of the waters and the hopelessness of his soul. In the twilight of dawn, there was no more vision, and Baal Shem Tov raised himself from the sand. He began to go on his way homeward, the way he had come. When Baal Shem Tov was near his death, a student came to him with a written book and said, "Rabbi, these are your words which I have written down." Baal looked at the book and at what was written and said, "Not one word of this is mine. My words are living words. These written words are dead." Then the aged man opened his mouth and spoke, "Now I will lie down and die." He covered his face and closed his eyes and prepared himself for death. Then stillness spread over him, and in the stillness was hopelessness, and in the hopelessness was death. But out of the stillness a voice came and spoke to him. "You shall not die, my friend. You shall live in the hearts of men."